The views expressed in this podcast are not those of the producer or the production company.
Hello, this is Nick, and we're going to talk about race today, because that's what we talked about in my sociology class, so I became inspired. I'd like to talk about how race doesn't exist at all. So, people seem to think that race is so important in America, and even if you claim that you don't think race is important, so many people do anyway. They see race all over the place. They categorize people. Oftentimes when you see someone in the street, you feel this need to try and guess their race or determine their heritage or where they come from, their ethnicity and their ancestry, like any of it actually affects their character or being. But honestly, I've never been in a situation where race has mattered to me at all. Like, it's never affected my daily life or the situation that I've been in. To me, something like that would be equivalent of walking into a room and looking around being full of people and thinking, oh man, this isn't going to go good. There's a lot of green-eyed people in here. It makes absolutely no difference. It doesn't make any sense. The race that I identify as, I'm a human. I've never been mischaracterized as being a human. I have a lot of traits that clearly define me and represent me as a human being. And so far, I've never been called anything else. No one ever has had to guess my race. It's fairly obvious to anyone who looks at me, and if I look in a mirror. And I never found that I needed to take into consideration my biology or my genetics or my skin color or my heritage of any kind. Race it doesn't really come up in my mind. And this comes from someone who grew up in a town just full of white people. Like, we have hardly any other races in our town. And I just think that it's not important in any way. Racism is bred entirely from ignorance and socialization. We are trained from birth to think that race actually makes a difference in our day-to-day lives. And those who are ignorant enough to not actually look around at the world and think about it logically and sensibly, they just take that to heart. And this mindset can be changed, if you use reason to carry out your actions and your beliefs, as I try to do every day of my life. But basically, it's racism is bred from ignorance, and a lot of people who believe in race in general seem to say that it's a very complex concept, a complex topic to talk about. But I don't think it's really that complex at all. I think it's quite simple. Oftentimes, complexity breeds in something from a place of non-existence. When you try to explain or exemplify something that doesn't exist, of course it tends to become complex, because you have to come up with all kinds of different ideas to actually make it make sense. In the case of race, because it actually has no bearing on our day-to-day life, complexity spawns from people trying to explain what it actually means and why it's important, when it's not really. It's the same for me with religion. I think it's a good analogy. People think that that's a very complex topic as well, because all the myths that religions, seem to push forward as historical truth never really happened, so of course the explanations get extremely complex, when you have to invent all these new things to make up for the fallacies and falsehoods. Now, I'll bring up an example of someone that you may have heard of named Rachel Dolezal. This was a white woman who, for a very long time, posed as or just pretended to be a black woman. She claims that she identifies as black, which is a whole nother subject entirely. But For the longest time, she was involved in black rights movements and in the NAACP. She was one of the leading members as well. She led black communities, and in 2015, I believe, she was ousted by her parents to the media, and it was shown that she was actually quite white. And this made so many people just irate with her. They were upset. They felt lied to, cheated. She lost all of her political positions, and she wasn't taken seriously by any community any longer, let alone the one that she had become so comfortable with and actually wanted to be a part of in the first place. But I don't know why this would matter to anyone. People feel cheated and lied to that she pretended to be something that she wasn't, but is this not exactly the same as transgendered people? And if everyone's okay with that, then I don't see why trans race is not a thing. And we've already gone over what I think about gender, and how that also shouldn't technically exist. So if race and gender don't exist, then why does it matter if someone pretends to be a different color than they are? It shouldn't make any difference to anyone. It's completely missing the point, because really the question you should be asking is not why shouldn't she be able to pose as any race she wants, but rather, what did she accomplish? It's a question that often goes amiss when people talk about this subject. Does anyone actually really know? Do you ever stop to think, maybe she actually did good? I don't personally know what she managed to accomplish when she was in this state of apparently posing to be a different race than she was born as. But I feel like that should be a more important topic than actually, what she was doing wrong, if anything at all. Because the ends really justify the means in this case. If she was an important and useful member of that community, then why does it matter that she wasn't actually born that way? In the end, really everyone should be equal, and everyone should be free. We're all just humans trying to live out our lives. Nothing is biologically different from one person to the next. Why should race ever come into a factor? Come in as a factor? It's just, sometimes it can be upsetting. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Mathe, a political statement. Today's host was Nick. If you would like to submit topics of discussion, you can comment here on this platform or message us on our Facebook page. Logo design created by Kyle Christ. For more of Kyle's work, visit karmiclothing.com. For all sources, our donation page, and social media sites where we are located, see the description down below. Thank you.